Hey everyone, it's Abby Schukei and welcome to the AOE Summer Conference. I'm really excited to be here today and I'm happy that you're joining me. Before we get started today, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and my teaching experience. I just finished my third year as an elementary art teacher teaching kindergarten to 6th grade in Bellevue, Nebraska. As part of that job, I have gone to 3 different buildings, 2 of which I do art on a cart. I go to classroom, and 1 in which I have a classroom and the kids come to me. With all of those buildings, I have a total number of about 1,000 students. So I see a lot of students, not very often, only once every 8 days, but I see a lot of students, and that kind of brings me to our topic today. The topic that we're going to be talking about today is how to be successful without the use of a kiln. The untold story of air dry clay. So I have a couple of things in front of me, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, I'm going to take you back to my first year of teaching. When I first started, I checked out all my 3 buildings, looked at all the resources that were available to me. And to my surprise, even after all the searching, there were no kilns in my building. So I had to figure out how am I supposed to work with clay if I don't have a kiln? I rummaged through the cupboards, and sure enough, I found this stuff. That stuff was Crayola air dry clay. I'd never heard of it before. No clue what to do with it or how to use it. So I took it to Google and tried to research some information about what I could find. And what the internet told me was that I could use it just like regular clay, which, was kind of nice in the fact of seeing 1,000 students. That means I didn't have to load and unload kilns. But if you have had to work with air dry clay before, you know that it just isn't the same. Sure, we can do some of the same techniques, slipping and scoring to build our clay pieces, but there's just something about it. It's not as sturdy. It's quite fragile compared to our bisque-fired clay that we can use. So, starting with my first year of teaching, I had over my 1,000 students, I probably had about 100 different clay pieces that I had to glue back together. It was a nightmare. I felt less like an art teacher and more like a clay doctor. So I said that I had 100 clay pieces that I had to fix my first year. Now, finishing my 3rd year here, I probably only had a total of 3 to 5 clay pieces that I had to actually do some surgery on to get back together. So I've made a lot of improvements in that way, but that's because I found a few different tips and tricks that have worked for me, and I'm going to share those with you today. So you can see that I have 2 different tubs of stuff here, okay? We'll go ahead and start over here. Right now, this just kind of looks like watery glue. That's really what it looks like. But what it is, it's actually a mixture of water and Liquitex gloss medium. I will make sure to add in the handouts and the afterpass, check that out because all the materials, supplies, brands, products that I've talked about, I'll make sure to add those in there, okay? But this is just, like I said, this is a Liquitex gloss. You could probably use this with any type of gloss, even Mod Podge. I don't like to use it as much, but it would definitely work. So what I had found out is that when the clay pieces were drying, it wasn't during the drying processes why it would all break. It was when students actually started to work with them. Because when you have little pieces hanging off like that, the air dry clay just couldn't handle it. And when students were, messing with it on the table, just trying to move it around and work with it, that's when the things would break off. So what I have done, I started doing this. I just simply make this mixture up here, and before every single clay project, when it is dry, I just dip it in here. And what this does is it helps just strengthen the clay a little bit. And let's say there is a piece that you're sure that was going to fall off. Chances are that can kind of help be a little proactive in keeping it put together, stay together without having any problems. I usually just put it on a rack like this. This is just some old file folder racks that are around, sometimes depending on the school that I'm at or, you know, what's happening on the drying rack. Sometimes I'll actually use the drying rack. But the important thing is, because it does have some gloss paint in it, it will, it can stick to this a little bit. So I just like to do it maybe at the beginning of the day or even when there's a class in, and I'll just, as I'm rotating around, just kind of pick it up and move it every 5 or 10 minutes or so, so it doesn't stick and we don't end up losing a chunk of clay on the back there. But this, it does dry very quickly, so you don't have to do that for too long. Now, this one over here is the same thing as this here. So this has water, the gloss medium, but this time I added some India ink with it. Sometimes I do black ink, sometimes I do a colored ink. It just depends on what we're doing. So this particular one here, I chose to do black. This works really, really well if you want to not have your students paint their clay pieces, but instead do an alternative method like using oil pastels. I found that using oil pastels on air dry clay works great, but if you want kind of that oil pastel resist look on a clay, with air dry clay, it doesn't work best to put the oil pastel on first and then dip it in. But you can get some of the same type of effect if you dip it in here and then let it dry and then go over with oil pastels and then finish it off with a clear coat, and then it looks, you know, really, really sharp. So like I said, you could do this with any color. For instance, these clay flowers down here that you see, before students started working with them, I added a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green into this mixture here. So we had a green bath of this gloss medium here. And I did that because, one, that goes along with, you know, our garden theme there. But another reason why is sometimes, you know, we don't like to see the white spaces show through. So if we have a different color show through, like a black, or in this case, the green, if somebody misses a spot, it's not a big deal. So this just works the same way here. And both of these, when they're drying, they will dry a little shiny. And you can just put these in a container. So these are pretty shallow containers, but I don't have very tall pieces. So if I was working with a taller piece, I would just put it in a deeper container. I'm gonna make sure I got this covered front and back. I'll do the same thing here with my rack, and just make sure to move it every 5 to 10 minutes, and that will really, really help protect your clay. If you're struggling with having lots of little broken pieces, give it a try. All right, so now that we have talked a little bit about how to strengthen our clay pieces to, you know, help it act more like our bisque-fired clay, I'm just gonna share with you some of my favorite ways to add color to them. And these are all gonna be painting examples because most of us tend to do that. But like I said, try out the oil pastels with that black India ink. It works really, really well. So the first one that I'm going to show you, and you can't go wrong with this, here's an example of using just pearlescent paints, just metallic. And this obviously gets more of that metal type look to it. So if that's the look of the project you're going for, that kind of creates a nice little sheen to it. So definitely try that out. My favorite one as far as the finished product goes is the finished example of this here. This one is very, very shiny, and it's actually temper paint. I used the Jazz Gloss for this. It comes in a lot of different colors. The students really like using it, but the only problem with it is that it's kind of gooey, and you can't really, the students have a hard time mixing colors with it, so you have to be very, very patient with it. But it does create a very, very nice high gloss shine. Not quite like we get with glaze, but as close as we can when we're using our air dry clay. This last one here, which is probably a close favorite to the Jazz Tempera. This is using the Liquitex Glossies, and this is an acrylic-based paint. So it has some of the same consistency as the Jazz Gloss Tempera paint, but you're able to mix the colors a little bit easier. It still has quite a nice shine to it, but the students seem to be able to work with it a little bit easier. But all of these pieces I did finish off with a clear coat sealer just to add them a little bit more shine, just to really make those colors pop. So I hope that you have some ideas of what you can do with your air dry clay, and check out the AfterPass here. I'm going to show you another alternative to adding some color to your clay pieces, both bisque fired and air dried clay.